Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another episode of the Serenity Resource Connector. Whether you're joining us live or you're watching the replay, as always, it is a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Just in case you missed the last episode, it was the week where we had the series on the year of early childhood development, and we were looking at having conversation about their upcoming developmental training that they're going to be having for parents and practitioners. So just in case you missed that one, you want to go back and check it out so that you can tell a parent to tell another parent or different practitioners in the early childhood system that there's an upcoming professional development institute training that's going to be taking place. We're going to be sharing more on that going forward. So you can check that out, check out their pages to get additional information on how you can participate to benefit from all the good things that they're sharing to strengthen the early childhood development. And as promised, we are starting a new series this week on fourth Thursdays. We are going to be having a series on local governance and development. And we're going to get the conversation started in a little bit, talking about the whole matter of understanding the roles and functions of the municipal corporation. Many people still refer to the entity as a that's the local government governing authority. And we are going to be learning a lot more about how the council, the corporation, cooperate in the space to make it all happen. And joining us for that discussion is Councillor Mayor Maragh, Mayor of Maypen, and the Chief Executive Officer of the Clarendon Municipal Corporation, Rowhan Blake. So Mayor will be joining us in a little while, but in the meantime, let's make welcome Rowhan Blake, CEO of the Clarendon Municipal Corporation. Welcome to the Serenity Resource Connector, Sir Blake.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's
great to be here with you.
Awesome. All right. And we already have one of our DAC chair joining us, Carmen Dillon. Welcome, Miss Dillon. Thanks for joining. And for the others who are already connected, welcome. And remember, you can share your questions, your comments in the comment section as the conversation progresses. So until Mayor joins us, Sir Blake, let's talk a little about the lay the foundation in terms of the municipal corporation, because there are two arms.
Right.
Explain to us the two arms and where you fall in that dynamic.
Okay. Thank you. Most persons do not understand how the municipal corporation operates, and we have been trying to do more public education just to let our citizens understand. So the municipal corporation has two arms. The political directorate, which is headed by the mayor, and that includes all the councillors. So within Clarendon, we have 22 divisions, and each councillor makes up that council, which the mayor is the chairman of council. So the mayor is the mayor of Maypen and the chairman of the Clarendon Municipal Corporation. So that is the political arm. Where I sit, I am the head of the administrative arm, and that includes staff members who give support to the political directorate. So that is exactly how it works.
Okay, great to put it in context. And we're happy to support, because that's what the Serenity Resource Connector is all about, helping to strengthen public education in the parish. So it's really great that we're able to have this conversation. You made mention, I was thinking about it earlier, that the mayor is the mayor of Maypen.
Right.
All right, you can expound on that. Why not mayor of Clarendon? Why mayor of Maypen?
Well, the mayors are attached to the capital township. So the mayor has three main functions, because he's still the councillor for a division, which is Rocky Point Division, which he has responsibility for as a councillor. He's the mayor of Maypen, but he's also chairs the council. And many persons do not understand, but the council is really the sitting of the group of councillors, and that
Right.
is the decision-making arm of the corporation. And so for most decisions, for all decisions, as a matter of fact, it is done by a vote. It is when all the councillors come together and they would vote on a position. And
Right.
whatever the majority says, that would be the decision of council. So there are times when persons may say the CEO made this decision or the mayor made this decision, but it's really the sitting of council that makes that decision.
Right. Because democracy is not just at the the national level; it is at the local level as well. We're a
Definitely.
democratic society, right? And each councillor would be representing their individual constituency, and each of those constituency have their unique challenges. So I can imagine it must be quite a tussle, and I mean, is the same set of resources that's competing for the different interests. So I'm looking forward to hearing some more from Mayor how he
Definitely.
operates, because balancing the whole act, as you said, is basically three unique portfolio: being the counselor for his division, being the chair for the council, and the mayor for Maypen. And even though he's the mayor for Maypen, he is ultimately responsible for seeing to it that everything takes place in all the different divisions. That's right.
And if I may just add to that,
Sure.
since the passing of Councillor Milton Brown, he now also has responsibility for the mineral rights division because there's no sitting councillor for that division.
Oh,
So that even it compounds his responsibilities.
and he does it with a smile. Looking forward
Right.
to having that conversation. But until Mayor joins us, all right, elaborate some more on your how you support the functions of the council.
Okay,
And
so
for the hours, but it will come together. Just stick with us. It'll come together.
right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my job is very specific, and it is outlined in the Local Governance Act. What is the role of the CEO? And so my job is the management of the affairs of the local authority. And it also includes the provision of policy advice and relevant information to council. And so what it means is that I would advise council, but I do not make the decision for council. So they may take the advice or they may not take it, but my job is to provide that advice. And it's also to guide the council regarding its functions and also the functions of the committees. And also, and this is critical, is to ensure appropriate execution of the policies and the decisions and programs that are decided by council. So in a nutshell, that is exactly what I do.
Awesome. Great,
Right.
great sharing there. Great sharing there as it relates to the different functions. All right. So Mayor is having a bit of a technical challenge. So we're seeking to have him in the conversation. All right. Ms. Lawson is showing her support. Good evening, CEO Blake and panelists. Great evening, Ms. Lawson. All right. So while Counselor is connecting, I know with all those different supporting roles that you have to play, there are several challenges that you encounter daily.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and share with us what are some of those challenges and how you have been navigating them.
Well, the challenges are numerous. They are
Go ahead.
numerous, and the first I will start with it's the lack of resources. And what we have, persons request certain actions from us, and many times we can't respond in the time that they require. And that is mostly because of the resources constraint. This arises mainly because of the way we are funded. A majority of our funding comes from own source revenue. So that means we will have to collect monies in order to carry out some of our roles and responsibilities. So the resources are an issue, but there are certain strategies that we utilize to ensure that we respond to the citizens of the parish. And one is that we would seek funding from other funding agencies. So we do our project writing, and we'll seek funding from, say, a TEF, a TPDCO, a JSIF, and anywhere that we know that they're funding for certain activities, we will try to tap into some of these funding agencies. There are times when those funding agencies will not fund a government entity, but they will fund community groups. So we assist the SEC in putting those groups together, writing the project proposal for them, and so they will access some of this funding, and then we will do some of the implementation on their behalf. We also try to increase our revenue in order to respond to the resource issues. And another strategy is to reduce some of our expenditures and to also reallocate based on the needs of the citizens of the parish. So that would be one of the issues. Another challenge would be our dependency on other agencies. And what that means is that sometimes our efficiencies are impacted because of the response time from some of these agencies. And so let me give you a few examples. Most of our processes involves other entities. Say, for example, a person keeping a party, they would apply to us for a license under the Places of Amusement Act. But the police also has to comment and has to give a permit under the Noise Abatement Act. Or there are times when the health department has to go and sign off on that location, or the fire department. So if they do not respond in a timely manner, then it would impact on our processes. And so sometimes when we're blamed for certain activities, it may be because of the time frame that some of our commenting agencies will respond. So that's a challenge. What we try to do is to have dialogue discussions, MOU with some of these entities so they would understand exactly what their role is in the process and how we depend on them to carry out some of our responsibilities. The forming of the CIAN group, which includes the interagency network, is critical. So when we have all the agencies at the table, then they would understand exactly what we're doing and also assist us to achieve some of our goals and objectives. You kind of touch on it a little bit, and this is a major challenge. It's navigating the political landscape. That is difficult.
Yes.
It is difficult because we have an entity that comprises of persons from the two major political parties. And that means they may have different views and different objectives. And so to get consensus can be very difficult. How do we deal with that? It's always trying to be professional, trying to be unbiased, and trying to seek consensus. So for us to navigate, they have to believe that we're doing what is right and trying to ensure that the visions are shared. And so it's a lot of negotiations, a lot of trying to let persons understand exactly where we want to go. So that is always difficult. We also operate within a unified service. And because of that, it's very difficult for us to maintain a team, a strong team. Because many persons sometimes are promoted to another municipal corporation, and we also have a high attrition rate. And I think this may be resolved when the new structure that is coming with the reclassification of civil servants. But what it means though is that we may train a person, and as soon as the person is trained, they are promoted to another entity, and that will impact on our work, impact on our efficiency, and we have to restart the process by interviewing, getting someone else. What we're trying to do though is to ensure that our orientation process is a little better, because most times for a person to stay at the corporation, they must have a passion for local governance and government. And we find that if persons are not having that type of passion, they will just use it as a stepping stone, and that impact on the services that we provide. So I would say those are some of the major um, difficulties. There are others, but those would have been some of the major difficulties that we have.
Okay. But as it relates to the whole matter of the attrition, because as you rightly said, for anyone to really stay in local governance, you have to have a passion for the area, passion to serve and understand that it's about serving the people.
Definitely.
Unless you really grasp that, it's gonna be very challenging because the challenges are real, but at the same time, we have to find ways to make it work. Challenges are everywhere, but I can imagine in that space because it's, as you said, a lot of us don't understand the full dynamics of the municipal corporation. All we hear is politics.
Definitely.
Yes, but right, but we trust that Mayor gets his thing sorted out. But don't worry if he's not able to connect with us. We do this every fourth Thursday until, well, we have until December 2022, God's willing. But the conversation will continue until we have covered the different areas and you have a better understanding as to how the municipal corporation works, because it's an entity that is there to serve the parish. And I believe, as I've always said, in starting from a place of understanding, because the more we understand how these systems operate, how they're supposed to serve us, and then you might have some recommendations too for improvement. Feel free to share because the challenges are real everywhere. So do share any additional information that you have. All right. So let's move into the different departments of the corporation and how they function.
Okay, so well, so we we have 7 departments and 3 units that carry out the operations of the corporation. And so I will start with the disaster preparedness and response, and that's a unit, not a department, because it's just a one person that carries on that function. And what that department does is to ensure that we are prepared for any eventuality. So
Right.
it does a lot of public education and public education about the vulnerability of the parish, um, trying to ensure that persons are educated to deal with any hazards, disasters.
Right.
So that is one of its main function, to ensure that we have emergency shelters that are in a state of readiness in the event that a disaster does occur. Ensure that the shelters are manned, so training of shelter managers, ensure shelter managers are in place. And you may know that most of our shelters are schools.
Yes.
So forge some type of partnerships with the school to ensure that the schools are also protected during the period when they are used as shelters. Um, Also collaboration with other entities, forming zonal committees and community response groups, development of evacuation plans, disaster plans, things like that. Recently, what we have been looking at is ensuring that we have certain re-engage in certain areas. We do have some bridges that are flooded, and so we try
Yes.
to put warning signs at those areas so persons will know not to enter those areas in the case when there is a
Flooding,
flooded
which is
in those
called the
areas.
alley bridge.
The alley bridge is one of those areas. We have in the in and town area, that is also one of those areas that we're paying attention to. Recently, we have been looking at tsunami, and
Yeah.
drought is also an area that most persons have ignored, but it's a reality in the parish of Clarendon. And so we are looking at that as a form of disaster, because many persons does not see the drought situation as a disaster, but needs attention, and its impact on
Yes.
our farming, and it can devastate the entire economy of the parish. So that is an area that we're looking at. We have been doing numerous trainings, forging numerous relationships and so on in this area. In the past few years, we have been lucky. We have not been have any significant disasters, but we continue
Thank
to
God.
really pay attention to some of the issues. And some of these disasters are not just natural disasters. We do have the man-made disasters that we have to pay attention to, and some of these has to do with some of the fires. And right now we have a situation where we have some parking, taxi park and gas station area, which also is so we're trying to prevent some of these things. And so it's a lot of work. It's just trying to ensure that our parish is safe, and also that we are empowered, so that whenever we have a disaster, it's easy for us to rebuild and to ensure that our citizens are resilient. So that is what that department pays much attention to.
Right. So they would have, that department would have been responsible for that news item about the situation with the market when the fire station was doing the drill. That would have been a part of that.
Right.
Right. Division. Right. Okay.
So although you have a department, a unit that deals with markets, if the disaster coordinator does an assessment and realize that area is of concern, then the disaster coordinator will then put measures in place to ensure that in case there's a fire or any type of disaster in the market, the response can be done easily. So there's overlap between directors and heads of units.
Right.
We do have a human resource department, and that department basically looks at staff welfare, ensure that we have the right staff in the various areas, and also ensure that the environment is conducive to provide for workers to be at their optimum. So that's basically it. The department also looks at citizens charter, ensuring that we respond to citizens' complaints in a timely manner. So those are the three main functions of the HR and administrative department.
Okay. Also, they were responsible for that lovely pamphlet you did some years ago when the Citizens Charter was launched.
Right, definitely.
Okay.
So, right.
We can talk a little bit more about that later on. Continue.
Okay, and we do have the financial management and accounting department, and that department ensure that we have our financial management is in order, ensure that we follow all the laws and regulation governing the spending and how we deal with government funds. Also to do projections to ensure that our budgets is balanced, and also to ensure that we spend in a certain way and not out of what is approved in the budget. So it's really just ensuring that our finances are in order and to ensure that payments are done on time and so on. And that department is headed by the chief financial officer.
Okay. You mentioned just now that spending is done in accordance with the approved budget. Who approves that budget?
Okay, so the budget is approved. Is first, there's a budget process, and so the budget is drafted by the officers within the finance department. Right. But the process is that for a budget to be approved, we must go to the community with the budget. So every year before the budget is presented, we do have a community meeting. So we're presented to the parish, the citizens of the parish, to get feedback and so on. When that is done and signed off, and it is then approved by the finance committee of council, and then to the minister of local government. So that's the process. When the budget is approved, spending must be done according to what was approved in the budget. Right. If there are any variation, that must go back to finance committee for approval. And that's where we sometimes have difficulties, because you may have councillors and residents calling to spend some money because this occur, but if it's not in the budget to be done, it's difficult for us to respond in that way.
Yeah, because the local government is just a mirror of the central government.
Definitely.
Yes, it's just that you don't have those fancy press briefings highlighting the whole thing, but
it is basically the same. And
yes,
so the next department is the Planning and Development, Planning and Sustainable Development Department. And that
right,
department is headed by the Director of Planning. And so that department is responsible for all planning and environmental related activities. So it is ensuring that there's a local sustainable development plan for the parish, ensure that
yes,
it's responsible for the approval of building plans and approval for subdivision, that is the cutting of lots into pieces. And it's also responsible for like advertisement approvals and so on. And there are other areas that comes under that department. So some of the issues that persons have would come under that department because they do execute some of the laws that governs the whole how the parish operates as relates to land use and land management.
okay. So the whole matter of the signage and all of that would fall on in that
And
department.
in that department,
Right.
traffic flow would fall in that department to a certain extent, but there are certain activities that fall within more than one department.
Right. All right. So
Okay.
if you're just joining us, we are having conversations with Ron Blake, CEO of the Clarendon Municipal Corporation, and we are talking about the different departments, different units at the municipal corporation, what the roles are, and who does what and why they do what they do.
Mm.
So we are having that conversation, and we're not going into the details now because we're going to be having these bite-sized discussion with the different units so that you can understand, get a better understanding and appreciation as to what happens and how they work with the other entities in the space to make things happen. That's
Mhm.
why we're doing this on the Serenity Resource Connector. So you make the connections as to how things work. And if you have recommendations for improvement, do share it. All right. The
Mm.
comments open so you can share your comments, share your feedback, ask your questions as the discussion continues. All right. Go ahead,
Mm.
Sir Blake. The
Okay,
author.
so we're now at the Roads and Works Department, and that is the engineering arm of the corporation. It's headed by the Chief Engineering Officer. So that department does the road rehabilitation, look at the minor water supply systems. Signage also comes, that's signage, that's for street signs and so on, comes under that
Right.
department. That department has a lot to do also with enforcement, and that's building enforcement, encroachment enforcement, and so on. So what they do mainly is they would be the persons who ensure that there's structural integrity of our buildings are done correctly, ensure that roads are rehabilitated correctly, and so on. So they would do a lot of building inspections and road constructions. So
Right.
that so it's really it's apart from the minor water supply and road rehabilitation, building works, it's anything to do with engineering. They would be responsible for that.
Right. And there's usually a lot of controversy as it relates to the where they fall in the dynamics and the NWA and the NWC, right? So
Right.
I'm looking forward to that discussion as to how we all work together in that
Mm.
regard,
Okay.
right?
Right. So
Okay.
we have a poor leave department, and that department is really the welfare arm of the corporation. So we ensure that the poor and destitute is taken care of. And for the poor leave department, it has two arms: the indoor poor and outdoor poor. So the outdoor poor would be persons who live within the communities. And so they would go to visit these persons, provide certain type of welfare to these type of persons. And if if when they do their assessment, those persons need further attention, then they may
Yes.
move them over to the indoor poor, which is the infirmary. And the matron is the head of the infirmary, while the inspector of poor is the head of that entire department. And so,
Right.
so And there's collaboration between the Police Department and Ministry of Labor. Because there are times when we may make recommendation for persons to go on the PART program or other programs that are provided by the Ministry of Labor. And they would also work closely with the Red Cross and Food for the Poor to get certain assistance to some of these persons within the community.
Yes, that's another discussion that I'm really looking forward to because I love to understand the behind the scenes how it all happens because in the as it relates to the whole matter of poor relief, that's another area that takes a lot of funding.
Definitely.
Right, it's challenging. And
We,
just to highlight at this point that there are two different locations for where the municipal corporation operates from. Just share the details for those who might not be aware where the poor relief and is it poor
okay.
relief and roads and work?
Okay, so the Poor Relief and Road and Works is at Brooks Avenue, right next to the fire station. Well, the main admin building is at 37th Road, right at the park, and that's at Council Street. The infirmary is down in Denby. That's on the road passing the cemetery and going up that hill. So that would be the infirmary. And just to mention also that we do have a drop-in center that falls under this department, and it is to deal with the whole street people, to respond to street people within the parish of Clarendon. And so what we will do at the drop-in center is to ensure that these persons are fed, and we try to do it in an organized way. So what we try to do is prevent arbitrary persons just go and feed these persons, because we do have a responsibility for them. We want to ensure that it's coordinated, and so we would know what they're getting. We do have a bus that would go and pick these persons up, take them to the drop-in center. They will be fed. We have doctors coming in. Persons from the mental health unit would also go there to check on them. So they will get a bath, get clothes, and get some food throughout the days. And so that's what the drop-in center is doing. The long-term goal for the drop-in center is to ensure it's a sleepover facility. We're not there as yet, but we're working to reach that stage.
Okay, awesome. That's very important to note. So for those organizations, the different community groups that are seeking to be a part of that, we refer to it at church as outreach ministry, then there is a protocol to be followed in terms of the coordination. So they need to check in with the municipal corporation for that to be properly coordinated. And
Definitely.
remind us what department they need to check with.
The Poor Relief Department.
Right. All right. Go ahead.
And just to mention before we move on that we do have a homeless committee that manages these areas, and
Okay.
many of the persons on these committees are persons, volunteers from within the communities. So just want to highlight that.
Okay.
Okay. So next we have the Commercial Services Department, and that department deals with its ensuring that our facilities are run at even a break-even point. So that department manages the markets and the parks, transportation centers, the cemeteries, the abattoirs, ponds, any facility that we own. It ensures that it is run and managed, so to ensure that it's self-sufficient. So that is the main focus of the Commercial Services Committee department, sorry.
Okay.
Right. And we do have a procurement unit, and that department unit is to ensure that all that we procure is done by the government procurement guidelines. And we do have our audit unit, which to ensure that we follow the books in whatever we do. And we have a unit called the License and Compliance Unit, and that deals with granting licenses and permits, and it's mainly for barbers and hairdressers, persons keeping their parties at the place of amusement, butchers. So all the persons who apply for a license and permits, that they would go to the department to ensure that they get these permits and license.
Yes.
So
We had
that
the pleasure of having them on in the first season, that was back in 2021,
Right.
and they were connected with the Ministry of Health, the local health authority, to show
Mhm.
the interlap on in or so just in case you missed that one, you're in that area of business, you want to go back and check that out. It's under the how to start a business series.
Right.
Welcome. Let me pause to welcome Miss Bailey from the SDC, Marlon Gray, president of the, all right, just in time, Marlon, good night. President of the Barbers and Hairdressers Association there in Clarendon. Welcome. Thanks for
Right.
joining. Yes.
Okay. Just to say to you also that there is a committee of council that would correlate with these departments.
Yes.
So the committee of council would make certain decisions, and then these departments would have carried out the actions. So say, for example, there's an HR department, but there's also an HR committee. So the councils would make that certain types of decision, and then the officers would carry that function out. And so say, for example, for place of amusement or commercial services, most of what they do would come under the public health committee, and they're guided by certain acts of that, the public health act and the butchers regulations and act and so on. So there are acts that governs how they operate, and there are committees that guide these officers in how they carry out their functions.
All right, so we can go into talking because you have a lot of meetings because the most persons only know about council meeting.
Right.
How often do we have council meeting? When are those held? And who
Okay.
can participate?
Okay. So we have what is called council meeting, and that is a sitting of council.
Yes.
And maybe I need to backtrack a little bit. So in
Sure.
our Local Governance Act, um, it makes reference to council meeting, which council is really the authority. But
Right.
because of the, the numerous things that we do, what council does is create committees to deal with certain aspects, so we don't have to take everything to council meeting. And so that is why we have different committees of council. So
Right.
the Local Governance Act of 2016 speak to council meeting, and it speaks to committees that are called standing committees. And what that means is that these are committees that must exist in all councils. So the standing committees are the Finance Committee, the Poor
Yes.
Leave Committee, and the um, local Public Accounts Committee.
Committee. Yes.
So all municipal corporation must have these committees. But apart from that, the council may determine to have what they call select committees, and that is dependent on the council and the priority of the council and the mayor for their tenure. So the council can create any committee that they wish if they believe that would be a priority for the parish. So I'm just going to run through a little bit about the committees that we have
Right.
at the municipal corporation. So I did mention before that we have the poor leave committee, which is a standing, which we have a poor leave committee,
Yes.
and we have that deals with all poor leave matters. And I mentioned the poor leave department earlier. So the poor leave committee would make certain decisions, and then the poor leave department will carry out those functions. We have the disaster preparedness committee,
Yes.
and that includes the poor leave committee is because of the sensitivity of that committee is very is restrictive. So it is not open to the public because many of the issues that are discussed are very sensitive.
Indeed.
Right. So we have the disaster preparedness committee, and that includes members of major stakeholders as it relates to disaster. So at disaster committee meetings, it is not just the councillors, but what you'll find is that first from the Ministry of Labour, the Red Cross, NWA, all the entities that would have been involved in the advent of a disaster, those persons would sit on that committee. Just to note also that the public can attend these committee meetings. Just to say, though, that for council meeting, it's open to the public. And right now we do carry it on Zoom also, so persons can watch the meeting. If a citizen wants to take part at a council meeting to do a presentation, they would have to write to the council first and get the approval, and then it will be open for them to come and do their presentation. So they will have to write to tell us exactly what they're coming to present, and then they will get that approval. But if they do attend a council meeting, which they are allowed to do, they can't speak, they can just observe the sitting of council.
What's the time frame for the notice?
We usually would take it up to minimum of 10 days, but it's always better to give it before, like a month before, so we can get prepared for that, because sometimes we may have a full agenda. Okay. So I would encourage persons to say a month before they could write a letter to say that they want to come and do a presentation outlining the area of presentation and so on. And if you have questions, they can also write in, and the questions will be responded to. But they can't just come on a day to ask a question and expect to get that the answer for those questions.
Okay. And it's any citizen, before you move on, let's make it clear. It's any citizen, it's not necessarily a group.
No, it can be any citizen.
Any citizen, right.
Any citizen.
Okay.
All right. We do have the Infrastructure and Traffic Management Committee, and that mirrors the Road and Works Department. So they deal with all the road works and infrastructural development and traffic flow and so on. And so what you'll find is that for those committees, the police, the NWME and so would come to those committees, because what they do also impacts on what we do in this area. The Commercial Services Committee.
Before you move on, this is the appropriate juncture to take Ms. Dillon's question. Who do I contact to get 2 signs at the James Hill Primary School area?
Usually requests are made through the CEO, and then the CEO will refer them to the relevant department. But it depends on the signs that this I'm not sure if it's traffic, what type of sign is required. More description will be needed. But usually made requests, and we will facilitate those requests if we can. But we do a lot of signs in school zones, slow school, those type of traffic signs. We do that. And we also collaborate with the NWA sometimes if it's a NWA road.
Okay. All right. What if a community group wants to fund these signs because of the nature of it? They seek the approval. What's the process?
They would write to us if they want to fund it. We would give them the specification that is required, and also monitor to ensure that it's done in a safe way. So we have done a lot of collaboration with citizens group as relates to these type of activities.
All right, great. So Ms. Dillon, I trust that answered your question. And we are speaking with the CEO. So you have his name, Ron Blake, CEO, Clarendon Municipal Corporation, and it's 3 7th Road, Maypen, right? So Ms. Dillon, go right ahead, put your letter together, put the clear details as to the type of signs that you'd want, and then Mr. Blake will take it from there. All right, there's another road question here. Why are the roads in Upper Clarendon not maintained?
Oh, let me say this. And this is what you mentioned earlier. There are some roads that are not under our jurisdiction. And so we're currently doing an audit of our roads. The main roads are under the jurisdiction of the National Works Agency. In Upper Clarendon, you do have other roads. You have farm roads, and there are also private roads, and we do have our parochial roads. What I can say to you is that the council do get funding for road rehabilitation, and I'm sorry, the mayor is not here to speak further on that. It's from the PRF fund, Parochial Revenue Fund,
Right.
and most of the funding from that would be from the motor vehicle licensing that is done within the parish. And this is where I implore persons, if you're going to license your motor vehicle, try to license it within the parish of Clarendon. If you do license in another parish, that money goes to that parish because the collector of tax,
Okay.
because where it is deposited, that's the parish that would benefit. So the fund is we get the fund monthly, but what we do is pool the fund to ensure that it's not fragmented too much. And so for every month, at least 4 councils will get a drawdown to do road rehabilitation. So for that, it would be the councillors who would have, based on consultation with their citizens, would tell us exactly what is the priority road within their division. So what I would implore persons to do is have more dialogue with their councillors, go to more of these community meetings and demand more, because we don't determine the roads that are rehabilitated. It's more through community consultation and the councillors that would determine that. What we do when we get that information, we then go in and do the repairs.
Right. So the Upper Clarendon Road, I would take it's the main road, so that would fall under the NWME.
And the NWA.
How,
We do
how,
have roads.
how can we determine which is parochial?
Okay, so we have a listing of our parochial roads, and we are currently doing an audit to add other roads. But there are different scenarios within the areas. And just last week we had a meeting with the national land agencies, because within some of these communities there are actually land settlements or land lease, and those roads were never handed over to the corporation. So the Commissioner of Lands is looking to see how best we can either complete some of those infrastructure and hand them over to us. So it depends on the roads.
Okay.
But I would say to you that based on the weather that we have experienced in the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of our roads have deteriorated. So in fact, some of those roads could in fact be our roads. We have done significant works in the northern part of the parish, but I can tell you, if just today I went into Kellett, and we do know that a lot of our roads are also in deplorable conditions. And so we're trying to seek additional funding to ensure that we improve on some of these roadways.
All right. Trust that answered your question, Mrs. Thomas. All right. All right. We were going on to commercial services next, I believe.
Commercial Service Committee is really a subcommittee of the Finance Committee.
All right. So we are in class.
Right.
All right. Before we get to that one, didn't know that motor vehicle licensing. I just learned that as well. So we are in class.
All right. So that's very important for us. For
Yes.
property tax, it's different. A person can pay their property tax at any collectorate as long as the property is within the parish. Then that
Right.
money would come over to the parish. But wherever you license your vehicle, that's the parish that benefits from that, and that is the fund that is used for road rehabilitation.
Good to know. Right.
All right. So I mentioned the Commercial Service Committee, and I mentioned it's a subcommittee of the Finance Committee, and so
Yes.
it's not a full council committee. Just a few councillors sits on that committee. The Physical Planning and Environment and Development Committee, that is a full council committee, and that deals with all the approvals for building plans and subdivision plans and so on. And I can say to you that we also draft persons who are not councillors to sit on these committees. And I think someone from the PDC also sits on this committee, because what we can do, and the act also tell us that if we have specialists within the parish that we need their expertise, we can draft them to sit on some of these committees to guide the process.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and PDC is the Parish Development Committee.
Right. Thank you for that. The Human Resources Management Committee, that's a closed door committee because it's also very sensitive and deals with staff related matters. the Public Health and Sanitation Committee, that deals with approvals for the licensing of barbers and hairdressers, and also look at the place of amusement and amusement locations, ensure that the public health issues within the parish are addressed. So it looked at the water quality of not only NWC but also our minor water supply systems.
Yes.
Look at some of the nuisances that occur, reports on what is happening at the hospital, reports on any threat as relates to healthcare. So that's a meeting that deals with all of those matters.
Okay.
And so at that meeting, the Chief Medical Officer of Health would be at that meeting to give reports and to update us, and also to give guidance and the way forward in those areas. We do also have our finance committee, and that deals with the whole bill payment, managing of our finances, and so on.
Yes.
And we have our civic and community affairs committee. We are trying to improve this committee. We have also invited persons within the parish to sit on that committee. That committee looks at how we can promote the parish, how we ensure that our parks and our other amenities are intact, or do we engage the youths and to ensure that the culture of the parish is carried on. So
Right.
this is a critical committee, and we are trying to develop the committee. As it is now, I can tell you that one of the main focus of the committee is to ensure that we promote heritage tourism within the parish. And so we have been looking at heritage sites that we think are played a role in our history. And we're
Yes.
trying to do some storyboards to tell about these areas, because many persons do not see Clarendon as a tourist destination or a parish rich in history, but that is not true. So we're trying to highlight the areas that are critical.
Yes.
We're also currently working the Costa Sha-Gore to get our 2 clocks up and ready. We hope that by August we should have the clocks working. That's Maypen clock and the Chapton clock. So we do a lot of these things in the civic committee.
All right. So Jamaica 60 arrangements are on the way.
Definitely.
All right.
Definitely. And that is one of our major project. The major project is to get the clocks up, and also to get the clock tower and Maypen to be more aesthetically pleasing and to be modernized in such a way, but also to
Yes.
ensure that our culture is maintained and
Served.
the history is maintained. Right. Thank you.
Indeed.
So that would cover the committees of council.
All right. And with all of these different committees, and the main focus of the municipal corporation is really to serve the people in the parish.
Right.
So let's move into communication. How does the corporation relate to the public?
Okay, so the truth is that we boast that we're the government for the people because we're closest to the people. And the way the local governance act was created was to ensure that citizens are involved in all decision-making processes. And I want to start by saying that we do have some weaknesses in this, as many persons within the parish do not participate in many of the activities. As a matter of fact, most times it's the same faces we're seeing at all the meetings. And we're trying to increase public awareness and education to let persons understand that they do have a voice. So as what we do, we ensure that we have town hall meetings. And we do have one per year to deal with the budget, but every quarter we do our town hall meeting, and that's a minimum. Citizens can request town hall meetings, and many groups have invited us to have a meeting. So if there's an issue within our community, and they write to us to say, we want you to come in to deal with this matter, we will come in and we'll also carry the relevant agency if we're not the agency that need to respond to them. So just 2 weeks ago, Camstone had some issues with building and the building notices, and they wrote to us, and we went there and we had a meeting surrounding that. So citizens can write to us for community meetings. We're always available for community meetings. So that's one way. We're trying to do improve on our website, and I can tell you that we have started the procurement process, in that we're looking at proposals, because what we want is to ensure that on social media we are very active. As it is, we're not where we want to be. So we are engaging contractors now to look at our page and to come with proposals to make it better. So we want to reach out through that medium. We do newsletters also, which is critical. And then there's a structure that the Act states. It's us reporting to the Parish Development Committee, which should have been the committee that also reports to the citizens. So that's also one of the major means of communication.
Yes.
So I think those are 4 main means of communication. And then we do have some press briefings at times and so on. But when we started this discussion, you spoke about the 2 arms.
Right.
We also expect that the councillors would have been having regular meetings with their constituents, and not only reporting to them, but getting the ideas and directive from those persons. So when they come to a meeting, they're not only pushing their personal agenda, but the agenda of the constituents. So that is how it ought to work. And so we're expecting that that is done. But we expect citizens to hold us accountable and hold the councils accountable, and ensure that if they have issues, to bring it to the table, because we have a responsibility to respond to those issues.
Right, because there was a comment earlier to say MPs and councillors only show up during election times, and that's a very popular statement, and which holds credit. But understanding the roles and responsibilities and the power that you have, as we have as citizens, because
Yes.
they are elected by the people to serve the people, and we are to hold them accountable. And a part of the whole um, reason behind having these different dialogue is for you to understand the system. Mr. Blake just mentioned in terms of the municipal reporting to the Parish Development Committee, and then the Parish Development Committee would pass on the information. Ms. Dillon is here sharing in the chat. She is using this forum to get information as to how she can improve her community as the Development Area Committee Chair. These individuals are part of that Parish Development Committee, and they bring these different issues. But at that level, at the different community level, the councillors within your jurisdiction and your MP ought to be attending the meetings so they understand
Definitely.
what is going on there, because how else are they going to really represent you if they don't know what is going on in the
Okay.
space? So
Right.
it's about understanding the how the system works, and you get it to work for you. All right, I just share the Instagram and Facebook handles in the comment section, so you can grab that to keep abreast of what's going on at the Clarendon Municipal Corporation.
Right.
And the other municipal corporations would have similar systems in place, because
Definitely.
do recognize this is a global space, and even
Right.
though we're engaging with the entities in Clarendon, the same system is replicated across the island, but it's the same roles and
Right.
responsibilities.
So
Right.
if I may just add to that, though, is we do get a lot of persons saying they are not seeing their councillors. But what is important is that there are different means to get to the councillor. And if a
Yes.
citizen writes asking of the councillor a question and it is presented at a committee meeting, the councillor must respond. And so there are different means to get the councillor to respond to certain issues. And that's why we're saying to citizens, you can always request a meeting with the council. And the onus would have been on the councillor to attend and to respond to some of those issues. Because what we find, and this is based on observation, most time it depends on the citizens who are more vigilant to request more attention may be paid to these areas, which is unfortunate. So we always say to community persons, form yourself in groups. It's very important. It works. And
Yes.
request information, request of the council. So there are communities that would write us almost every month to request something. And it is not to say that we can grant everything that is requested, but there are times when, because we know of the issues within these communities, you're on the front burner. So when the resource comes, you're more likely to get because you are the one that we know about.
About it. That's
So,
right.
so it's important.
All right. So it's a two-way. Communication is two-way.
Definitely.
So you need to reach out, and that's why it's important to be a part of the different community groups as well to strengthen the structure, so they ensure that you have the information flowing. All right. So Miss Grant is asking if there's a number that we can call if we want to make a sign for a church. Not sure what kind of sign that is, Miss Grant. We spoke earlier about, Mr. Blake shared earlier about the different departments, and that would be responsible. So you can write directly to the CEO and he will direct it to the relevant department. Just
Okay.
indicate all the details as to what's the nature of the sign. Is it a sign that you want to erect at the church gate? Where exactly you want to put the sign? And then they you'll be guided accordingly. So
All
write a
right.
letter to Mr. Ron Blake, CEO,
Mhm.
Clarendon Municipal Corporation, 3 7th
Seventh
Road,
Road. Seventh Road. Mhm.
Maypen, Clarendon.
Mhm.
All right, Sir Blake, anything else as it relates to, all right, the process. When the letter gets to you, what's the procedure to address same?
Oh,
So person have an
that
idea,
specific one or just any letter?
any letter. What's the
Okay, so the process is quite simple. Um, when a person writes in, it the letter will then be transferred to the relevant department for investigation and also to respond. And this may be maybe a reporting or to deal with the matter based on what it is. Um, that is usually done within 10 days. There are times, however, that when we do the investigation, we may realize that based on what is requested, it's not under our
yes.
jurisdiction. So that can lend the process in that at that time, we may write back to the citizen to say that this is not under our jurisdiction and you may need to refer to X agency. There are times when we, however, do write to the agency to say, listen, we have got this complaint and we want
Right.
you to look into this. What we find though, and this is a challenge, most times when the letters are written to us and we write to these persons right back, we find them in return mails coming back to us. So they're not being picked up, so I'm not sure what the issues are with that. But we do need to improve on our communication because we know that we have gotten complaints that persons are saying they are not hearing from us in a timely manner. So we're trying to work on that. But we do have a process with a 10 days turnaround period to respond to any complaints that come into the corporation.
Okay. And the response might not be to conclude the matter, but just to acknowledge the correspondent and to say where you're at and the next steps. I would
Definitely,
imagine.
definitely.
All
And
right.
so it depends on the complexity of the matter.
Okay. All right. We acknowledge that we're over the 1 hour mark. There are a couple of questions here, so we're going to take those. We thank you for joining us for this discussion, and this is the first of many more. Every fourth Thursday, we're going to be having in-depth discussion with the municipal corporation to give you a better understanding as to how things work there. So Ms. Lawson is asking, she's okay. Maypen is one of the fastest developing townships in Jamaica. There's a commercial development in the mineralized area cause the redistribution of activities anticipated.
Oh, okay, let me just say that Maypen definitely is one of the fastest growing towns. and we do anticipate that it is going to be growing even faster. And so I respond to the question by saying, with the new activities in that area, it will not impact as much as some persons may think, because there is both areas can coexist and survive. Because what is it is that we do have numerous housing developments that are coming into the parish. And so what it would mean is that we would need additional commercial spaces to respond to these persons. And so it is two different clienteles. I would want to put it like that. So so it would be like a Alpha Tree versus a New Kingston. It's so both is needed, because both will
Yes.
provide different type of services. And we anticipate that the town will grow further. Based on where we sit, we have seen a lot of developers coming into the parish, want to do more housing development, want to do more commercial development. So Mapen and Clarendon is poised for increased development in the near future.
Indeed. And just to add to that, one of the beauty about what happened at Mineralized, which is why they anticipated fallout did not take place the way it was preconceived, because of the model that was used. Having conversation from the business perspective with the developers at the Sha-Gore developers, what happened is that there are specific types of businesses that they actually allow to share space there, which is the ideal business concept if you really want to get the space to work, because you don't have a whole bunch of retailers in the same space. And if you notice, it's a different set of fast food establishments that are on that side of town as opposed to the other side of town. So
Right.
it's a different taste, different flavor. So you get to choose where to go. So the business model, the thinking that went behind it is what helped to semi whatever it is that was anticipated in terms of people shifting. Because there are a lot of buildings going up along Manchester Avenue and different areas in Mapen, business development, and there is room for all.
Definitely.
Because with the connection with the highway, you're not just serving Mapen or Clarendon. Mapen is really central. So you have shoppers from St. Catherine and Manchester. That's how the
Definitely.
business space is. And
And
a lot
yeah,
is taking place there. So I trust that answered your question, Miss
right.
Lawson.
And I just want to add to say that the current Mapen as the current capacity of Mapen is really we have long past that current capacity. So we always needed somewhere to take some of the burden of that area. But as you mentioned, we do serve many communities that are outside of the Mapen area.
Yes.
You do have the Langsville Park area. You have persons as far as Frankfield and those areas coming down to Mapen for shopping and so on. But if you when you do your studies, you realize that we do have numerous persons from the parish who also shop in Kingston and Mandeville,
That's right.
because the place is not conducive to those persons. So these new development is to get back some of those persons to shop within the parish. So just want to conclude by saying that.
Right. Awesome. All right. You're welcome, Miss Lawson. All right. Marlon is asking about the drain from along Maple New Testament there, unbearable based on its condition. Who can help to rectify such condition?
That's down at Manchester
Manchester
Avenue.
Avenue.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so Manchester Avenue is a NWA road, but as a council, we do not just say we have no responsibility. So now that this matter is raised, what we'll do is engage NWA to look at it, And there are times when we also use our resources in these areas because we do also have responsibility for the town. So I'm just going to take a note of that, and it's the drain at, I'm just going to take a note.
Right.
And Marlon can call in so we can get to respond to him directly as relates to this.
All right, Marlon, I hope you got that. And he has another concern. The stakeholders in the same vicinity heap garbage close to the drain, which is in front of the church, which is part of the problem. That's part of the challenge because I believe there might be some vending taking place there. So your team might need to investigate that as well.
Okay, so garbage collection is a major issue right now. And if you may have seen the news where we had a resolution in council where the council had put forward that we do not pay NWME any money until the garbage situation is rectified. I know the situation has been escalated to the minister level, and I know that even the prime minister spoke about it. The SPM is saying that they do need additional trucks to move the garbage from Clarendon. One of the difficulties that we're having is that as a parish, our population is large, but we do not have a landfill within the parish, and we do not have a transfer station within the parish. And that means that the turnaround period for garbage is very long. So they can't do as much trips as if we had a site within the parish. We have been looking at some sites and proposing to NSWMA to ensure that we have a location within the parish so we can have more trips to clean the towns faster. A few of the communities that we looked at, the residents objected. So, but we are still looking at that. That said, though, commercial persons have a responsibility to pay for their garbage collection, and they can also arrange with private contractors to move their garbage. Where a person is dumping garbage in an area that is not prescribed, the municipal police can serve notice under the Litter Act. And so what I can say to Marlon is that we will be looking in that area. And if you have an idea who the person is, just try to get us some information, and we can deal with those matters. But I'll also pay attention to the area and ask our municipal police to take a look and see what's happening in that area.
Awesome. All right. Miss Lawson just responded to say all very important discussion. Thank you, Miss Lawson, and thank you all for joining. All right. And this is the first in the series of discussions with the Clarendon Municipal Corporation. So we're going to be looking at taking these different areas, the different departments, units in bite sizes, so you can get a better understand, appreciation, and know who you're to go to access whatever service, and make your contribution as it relates to getting things done. Here it is that Marlon is getting direct response to his concern, take a note of, follow up on that. So, Mr. Blake, you're gonna be sitting in on some of the others because there are gonna be some questions that you might need to weigh in on. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. I will always be available because this is a good forum. It makes no sense for us to be working without knowing exactly what our constituents are saying and what are their real issues. I can say that we believe in the parish, and we believe that the parish has so much potential, and we know that it's our responsibility to make it a better place for the future generation. And based on information that we have, we know that many persons are moving out, coming to Clarendon. And that is one of the reasons why our land prices are going up, because people see it as a viable place to live. especially with the new roadways and so on. It's accessible, easily accessible. And so we need to be prepared for this influx of persons coming in the parish, and also ensure that our citizens benefit from everything that is to happen in the parish of Clarendon. So we need to pay attention.
Indeed. All right, Mr. Lawson, how can we ensure that more citizens and constituents join these discussions for future sessions and have their issues addressed? So the reminders are shared with the topics on the different platforms. So whichever entity we're having the series with, so this series is with the municipal corporation, so there's a joint collaboration. So the my personal pages, we're on the YouTube. What you can do, what I usually ask, is that once you join a session and you see where it can benefit other citizens, share the link so that they can subscribe to the YouTube channel. They can set up the notification so they can get their reminders and prompt them to say what it is that we're going to be discussing. Come next Thursday, we're going to be starting a series on Culture Corner. That's a collaboration with the JCDC. So we're going to want to tune in for that. That's going to be on first Thursdays. We have the Year of Early Childhood Development series on third Thursdays, and now the Local Governance and Development series on fourth Thursdays of each month. So just stay tuned to the different channels, and you'll know what's coming up. Share with the different citizens so that they can be a part of the conversation, ask their questions, and get answers directly here, which is why we're using this format. So you can get it done. And if you leave your questions on the link, I'll be sure to pass it on as well. Any question that comes in after the live ends, I'll be sure to pass it on so you can get your responses. All right. Thank you all again for joining. Any final thoughts for this episode, Sir Blake, before we wrap?
Just, I think what I should highlight to you and the audience is that the paying of property tax is also very critical. And that is what funds much of our activities. And I just want to share that for the financial year 2021 to 2022, we had exceeded our targets. And we collected 107%. So the target was 670 million. We collected $714,466,000. And the areas that were most compliant, based on the collectorate, for Maypen, it was the Cotis Pen area that collected 98%. For Chapelton collectorate, it was In and Town with 95%. And for the Lionel Town collectorate, it was the Lionel Town housing scheme with 95%. So those areas did well. We will continue to do to increase our collection. I know persons may be complaining about street lights. Just to say to those residents that based on our discussion with JPS, what we're trying to do before installing new street lights is to change out the existing lights to LEDs. When that program is completed, then we'll start to install new street lights in new areas. So we're asking citizens to bear with us a little bit and until this project is completed. That said, though, if in certain areas where it's critical, we'll still try to install at this time. So I just wanted the listeners, persons online, to note those, because those are critical. We have seen the requests coming in for new streetlights. We're also asking residents that you have a responsibility to debush your properties. We have a number of complaints coming about overgrown bushes in some of the residential communities. The onus is on the residents to debush your properties. If you don't, then we have no option but to take action against you. So I wanted to leave with those two things that I think are topical at this point.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing space with me here on the Serenity Resource Connector, and look forward to ongoing discussions. And for those who were hoping, like both of us, to have Mayor in this space, unfortunately had some technical challenges and wasn't able to connect. But he is hearing what is happening here, and we are going to ensure that he leads out on the conversation on the next episode of the Local Governance and Development series, so that you can hear from your mayor and ask your questions. So we will bear that in mind as we plan for the next discussion. Thank you again for joining us, and special thanks to partners: Sha-Gore Aggregates Limited, Cousins Construction Services Limited, National Self-Serve Wholesale, and Serenity Advisor Consulting Services for making this all happen. Do continue to stay safe, and I trust that you'll share the information with your family, colleagues, friends, and your community at large, so that we are more better informed and help to be a part of the development process for our parish. Thank you all, and have a good night.